or
Yes,
people want to?
basically what we do is we send it to the chairman, and then they internally send, because we don't have access to all the email IDs.
Okay. Fine. That's
I have
wonderful.
posted on my social media platforms.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
large audience in that sense would have known probably.
Correct. Yeah. So that way we have good amount of publicity. Both Mr. Harish and even Phatak, MD, all of us have posted the social media, and including CSA Bombay chapter has been very supportive in terms of posting it on the social media.
Yeah.
So they have shared it, and
Shankar from Onward is here.
yes, I have noticed few people from Onward are joining. Onward,
I just saw one
Chennai.
big Shankar. I could be from our company.
Yeah, there are quite a few from Chennai also. Onward,
Yeah.
Chennai.
My old friend Shashi Kelkar seems to have joined, but I can't see him.
Professor, he is there, but he has muted himself. I can see in the list.
Yeah. Just 1 minute. Satish from Trivandrum is there. Sudarshanam, our past CSA Education Director is also there.
Good evening. Good evening, Professor Phatak. Sudarshanam, ex-CSA Chennai.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, sir.
I can see my old friend K. Subramanian. Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. This is Shankar from Onward, Chennai.
Oh, hi, Shankar. I saw your name. So I thought you.
Yes, sir. I was on mute, so I couldn't.
Okay. Oh, Bipin Mehta has joined from Ahmedabad.
Will join. Just wait for another 5 minutes.
Yeah, no issue. Good evening, everyone. Yeah. Good evening, Harish bhai.
Hi, good. Hi, Bipin. How are you?
Hello, sir.
Good evening, Bipin.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, please. Yeah. Nice to see you, all of you. That is very hot.
Very hot.
We are
equally.
Yeah.
We are also. Chennai is also fighting with Ahmedabad to become hot.
We are 44.3 today.
I think we have not yet reached 40.
Yeah.
We are still around 38, 39.
Oh, then you are lucky.
Yeah, because of the beach, we have the beach, so that tries to set down the temperature a bit low.
Right. Yeah, good.
Dr. Subramaniam is in Delhi or is in Coimbatore?
Yeah, I am in Coimbatore right now, but I'll go to Delhi soon.
GR sir, namaste. Sudarshanam, former CSA Madras.
I know that.
Oh.
Seeing you after a long time.
Veterans. On this number. But I have other number. Should I send on that number? Okay.
Yeah, same number will go.
Dr. Sudarshan continues in where I think it is in Trichy or Srirangam.
Srirangam.
Yes, Sudarshanam, I continue to live in Srirangam. Same. Okay.
Hello, Dr. Subramaniam. How are you?
Fine, thank you, sir.
Okay. Where are you? You are in Chennai or in Coimbatore?
Coimbatore, but I will go to Delhi in June end.
Okay.
Akila, can you start the recording? Okay. Okay. We'll start our program.
Okay.
Vanga.
Good evening to one and all. With great pleasure, on behalf of the organizing units of CSI, IEEE, ACM, I extend a warm welcome to our today's guests and fellows of Computer Society of India, Professor D.P. Phatak and Mr. Harish Mehta. Both the guests are strong supporters of CSI. They are personally known to me for over 3 decades. I had the opportunity of interacting and working with them in many CSI activities. I feel extremely delighted in hosting them in today's program being conducted on behalf of the CSI, IEEE, ACM Chennai chapters. Our hearty welcome to all the participants joining today's event through the Google meeting and YouTube streaming. It is great to see several senior members of Computer Society of India, IEEE Computer Society, ACM, such as MD Agarwal, Satish, Mr. G. Ramachandran, Dr. Subramanyam, and Dr. Sudarshan. Of course, I am not naming everyone who are present here, and many more join this today's event along with my colleagues at these societies. Our warm welcome to them also. We have been regularly organizing events to launch the books authored by our senior CSI colleagues. Today's event is one such occasion to formally launch the book, The Maverick, The Inside Story of Indian IT Revolution, authored by Mr. Harish Mehta. It is going to be formally launched by Professor D.P. Phatak. In today's event, following this formal welcome note and introduction of guests, Mr. Harish Mehta will speak about the book and explain what motivated him to pen it. He will also share his views on Indian IT, the past, present, and the future. Following that, Professor Phatak will formally launch the book and offer felicitation. He will then interact with the author on the book and also about few issues related to Indian IT. Then we will have the Q&A session in which both the guests will answer some set questions. We had already received from registered participants, and the questions to be posted in the chat box by those attending the event. After the formal vote of thanks, both the guests will be available for personal interaction with the interested participants. Now my pleasant task in introducing the guest of today. I will start with Mr. Harish Mehta. Mr. Tyag, can you mute yourself? Mr. Tyagarajan. Mr. Tyagarajan.
Yes. I'm Tyagarajan here.
Yeah, can you mute yourself?
Okay. Yeah, I'll mute myself, yes.
Okay. Mr. Harish Mehta, the author of the book, The Maverick Effect, is a seasoned IT professional and a fellow of Computer Society of India. He has been a strong supporter of CSI. He, along with Professor Phatak, brought the prestigious VLDB conference series during the 1990s to India and also set up a fund to support further research in that area. Mr. Mehta was the driving force behind galvanizing the IT industry in India by co-founding NASSCOM, the IT Industry Association of India, in 1988. As a keen tech and entrepreneurship evangelist, he always endeavored to enable scientific and entrepreneurial spirit in Indian youth through various initiatives. As the founder of Onward Group, he has led, grown, and mentored 2 generations of this company. From 1993 to 2005, he was the Deputy Chairman and Managing Director of Onward Novel Software Limited, which was a 50-50 joint venture between Onward Group and Novel Incorporation, which was the second largest personal software company globally at that point of time. Onward Technologies took off in 2005, where he served as MD and Chairman from the inception to 2015, and now he is the Executive Chairman. Previously, Mr. Mehta was one of the chief architects of Inditron Digital, that is a tech joint venture in India in 1987. NASSCOM started from his office and was formally established in 1988. He is a founder member, the first elected chairman, and now the convener of Chairman's Council of NASSCOM. He was honored by the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, for 25 years of exemplary contribution to Indian IT. Mr. Mehta also introduced the Indus Entrepreneurs, popularly known as TIE, a Silicon Valley-based organization, to Mumbai, and he was the first president of TIE Mumbai, which was in 1999. He continues to be an active member of TIE Mumbai. Some of his numerous credentials include Director of Indian Angel Network, the world's largest and most active angel investors group, former expert advisor at Small Industries Development Bank of India for its fund of funds operation, former director of Gujarat Venture Funds Limited, and a founding member of Infinity Venture Fund, India's first corporate VC fund, director at the College of Engineering, Pune, where he was formally graduated, awarded CEO of the Year in 1994 by NMIS, Tata HRD Network, and World HRD Congress. Honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award by IMC, Chamber of Commerce and Industry in 2018, active volunteer of Onward Foundation and Devang Mehta Foundation. Mr. Mehta holds a bachelor degree in electrical engineering from College of Engineering, Pune, and a master's in computer science from Brooklyn Polytechnic Institute, New York. Now let me introduce Professor Phatak. Professor Deepak B. Phatak is a well-known computer scientist and academician. He is a recipient of the prestigious Padma Shri Award for his contribution in science and technology in 2013.
Mohan, sorry for interrupting, but just introduce me in one line. I am a teacher from IIT Bombay.
Okay, sir. Okay. No, but I need to introduce you as a support CSI. He is a fellow of Computer Society of India and a strong supporter of CSI in all its activities, right from bringing the VLDP conference along with Mr. Mehta. Of course, some of his, he has numerous credentials and awards, and I would like to highlight some of them. He is a fellow of Computer Society of India in 1999, fellow of Institution of Electronic and Telecommunication Engineers, IEEE in 2000, Lifetime Achievement Award by Scotch Foundation in 2003, Lifetime Achievement Award by Data Plus in 2008, listed among 50 most powerful Indians by Business Week in 2009, Padma Shri Award, as I mentioned, he was awarded in 2013, Lifetime Achievement Award by IIT Bombay, and Lifetime Achievement Award by Insta Mumbai in 2014. With this brief welcome note and introductions, let me hand over the session to Mr. Harish Mehta to offer his remarks on the book and then to talk about his views on Indian IT. Over to Mr. Mehta.
Thank you, Mohan. First of all, I must thank both. I'll start with MD Agarwal because he is the one who started this dialogue with me to come and speak to all of you. Thank you, MD. Of course, I thank Mohan for he has been persistent in making sure that every small thing is taken care of. Of course, and Dr. Phatak. I also see many of my colleagues here. Sanjay Prasad, I see Shri Ganesh, I see, hello. Pleasure to meet old friends here. Now, Chennai, see, I grew up in Matunga, San Matunga, which is nothing but a Chennai stronghold in one way. And in my company also, Hinditron, my software head was one Mr. Kalyan Sundaram. And then there was a saying in our company that in order to join Hinditron software group, you have to know 3 languages, COBOL, Fortran, and Tamil. So we're very close to all of you. Of course, as I was just saying before, that the weather of Mumbai and Chennai are all very similar, hot, humid. You also have a sea, we also have a sea. You are lucky that you don't have the traffic of Mumbai. Okay, so now what I plan to do is spend covering the subject is so big. So what I'm going to do is talk about a few stories about the book, which hopefully will answer many of the questions that you may have, or about India past, future, and that also would be weaved in, not as a specific subject. I don't do PPT slides, so a little challenge there. So first, let me start by saying why I wrote the book. I'm not an author, I'm not an historian, nor I'm an economist, but I still plunged in to write the book. And one of the reasons is, maybe I'll tell you a story. This happened about 15 years back. I was on my way to attend TiCon at San Jose. So I got down at the airport, took a taxi, and I said, I want to go to Fremont Hotel where the TiCon was. So the taxi driver was a mid-aged Sardar. And he asked me, "Aap kahan se aaye ho?" So I said, I'm from Mumbai. So what do you do? I said, I'm in software industry. And then he says, "Aapne hame izzat dilai hai." So I'm scratching my head, what have we done to create pride for a taxi driver, mid-aged taxi driver in San Jose? I asked him, why are you saying this? He said, now any American who travels my taxi, he or she thinks that I'm a PhD student doing part-time taxi driving. So that is the brand your industry has created for us in USA. Even the place where I live, he says my reputation has moved a few notches. I'm considered as a bright intellectual coming from India, living in that locality. So now NASSCOM started from my office, and I have seen the industry grow. I have seen India changing. Like I saw this pride in an Indian 10 years back. But about 4 years back, 3 or 4 years back, when I was and I like to read books. So I bought books from politicians, books written by bureaucrats, books written by RBI governors. And the first thing I would do is look at the index page and see NASSCOM. No NASSCOM is there. Then I see IT. No IT is there. So I said, why is it? Then I called a few leading economists and I asked them, why do you think India changed? And there was no real answer. There's a 1991 reforms. I said, well, what did the reforms do? Fine, they opened up the economy, but what did they do? So there was no answer, and nobody could tell me what it is. I believe very strongly that it is the IT industry of India that has changed what Dr. Sumantra Gosal used to say, the 1,000 years of downward spiral of India was arrested by the IT industry of India. Now, let me give you some numbers here. When we started NASSCOM, industry was $52 million. Today, we are at $212 billion. Now, what does that 212 billion mean? Today, Saudi Arabia's exports are 150 billion. Now, that $150 billion goes in one account in Saudi Arabia, and the population of Saudi Arabia is 3.5 crore. Versus here, this money coming in every year in India, but it goes through millions of accounts in the country. So that's why we don't see the kind of impact it has made in Saudi Arabia to India. But yeah, you see pockets of excellences all over. Mumbai, Pune, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, everywhere you see pockets of excellences have now come up thanks to our industry. If you look at in terms of, let's say, import of oil, import of smartphones, where did the foreign exchange came from? Today also 50% of India's exports, are net export I'm talking about, are driven by IT industry. Over the last 20 years, our industry has contributed $1 trillion of foreign exchange. That's on the dollar side. Now look at the employment side. When we started 30 years back, we employed 40,000 people. Today, our industry employs 5.3 million people. And these are all high-end, high-income earning people. Now, 5.3, and because of the high-end, higher income earning people, now they can afford a car, they can afford a house, they can go to retail shops. So the entire, you can say, the ripple effect of the derivatives of this industry has percolated in the country. In every city, you find this shiny retail malls to residence complexes coming up, to airports are being expanded. So substantially, it is contributed by our industry. Now, further you go deep into this 5.3 million, 37% are women. Now, can you believe 1.5 million women today enjoying freedom at work and at home? And what kind of revolution, the cultural revolution they are going to bring in? Frankly, I even don't know. It will take 5 to 7 years before that impact is felt in the society. So that's a major impact that just women as an employee would create. But look at the other side. Who set the corporate governance standards in the stock exchanges? IT industry. Who set the standards for financial disclosure in annual reports or the quarterly reports? Again, the IT industry. So when you see that kind of change, which allowed FDI or the foreign money, FDI money to flow into the country, and it built trust in India. Now, when you put all these pieces together, is there any other industry in the last, since the independence, who has contributed such a massive numbers or cultural change? I don't think so. I do not know any industry, frankly, who has come even anyway 1/10 of what IT industry has contributed. So if that is the case, why not people believe that? Why are the bureaucrats who are the policy makers are not even talking about the IT industry? Forget about NASSCOM. So that gave me, as I said, somebody has to, I blamed myself. I said, we have not, as an industry, written the story of the IT industry, what happened, how it happened, what was the inflection point that allowed the industry to grow. And I took that risk of writing the book. And yes, I am not an author and all that. So I put a team together to fill in all my weaknesses. I had SP Jain as a organization to do research on data. So whatever data I put into the book, they have validated it. Of course, the other economists may still challenge, most welcome. But at least it proves that these numbers are not coming from air. They are backed up by proper research and proper, of course, in India, again, the databases are not so good either. RBI doesn't have, if you ask them, how much is the software export from Germany, they won't know. They'll give one number, some invisible revenue, and somewhere it is hidden, and you have to figure it out. Very difficult right now also to get to know. But anyway, but overall gross numbers we know, and so that's where we are. So that's the kind of, we can say, flywheel NASSCOM built. Now, why do I say that? Why is it that NASSCOM I'm giving credit to? So here I would like to tell you again a few stories. So NASSCOM, in the very early in the beginning when we started, we decided on certain, and all of us came from, you can say, middle class. And we had middle class values, middle class way of thinking. So we didn't have any very, you can say, big, no money, no resources. Yeah, we had the education. And we had the desire, we had the will, we had the confidence to go forward. And in that, so we came up with those few values. I'll talk about it. So the first one was for any, and then we had found something, nobody knew what is software in those days. There were 6 different definitions of software. And I've given many examples in the book about how we as a software services provider were, I think I'm going beyond the time, sorry. So Mr. Mohan, you tell me when to stop it so that I don't eat into the other time here. because I'm still on the first part of it. I'm not even come to the other sides. Sorry. So anyway, so come back to, there were many obstacles about the starting a software business. We had something like 125 regulations strangulating our industry. And because of most of two reasons. One is they didn't know what software is, and second, software is intangible. They couldn't see it. So all the rules of the physical world or hardware were applied to software. And that made our life very difficult. And on top of that, bureaucrats didn't trust us. Like when I remember once I went to London via Paris, I had a prospect to meet in Paris and a prospect to meet in London. And the last minute, my plans changed. So I went from, instead of going to Paris first, I went to London and then to Paris. Can you believe RBI sent an inquiry to me? They summoned me to ask, why did you change the itinerary? What was the reason? And you are not supposed to change it. And you get into a completely different arguments. So instead of encouraging you to travel openly, freely for marketing your services, they pushed us into those kinds. Anyway, so those kind of regulations were strangulating us. So we decided to form NASSCOM. And the first thing we decided was we will not bribe anyone for any policy change to go forward. Now, again, it's a collective decision. In those days, some of you who are from my age group would know what kind of challenges we had working with the bureaucracy. But then we came up with many other, we studied CII, FICCI, SOCM, CSI, IMC, Lions, Rotary, all that we studied and said, what is relevant for NASSCOM? And we said, okay, technology is continuously changing, so we would focus on building the ecosystem for software. We will not just focus on lobbying work with the government. And within that ecosystem, we wanted to build what I would say camaraderie. So in the first few meetings, nobody would talk. They're fiercely competing entrepreneurs. So they were scared to open up in a meeting. So they would not, there was a fear that they may disclose some problem area and the competition may pick it up and then hurt them. Or they may say something which is a secret of their success, others will copy it quickly. So there were a lot of such misgivings about, and nobody learned how to communicate at an aggregate level in a group. You need to think beyond company and talk at industry level or India level. So those are I remember if there's a John Monnet of the person who united all the European countries together. He became my sort of a role model because how countries which are hating each other like Germany, France, Italy, how he brought them together under one European Union. So that's when he came up with a beautiful line saying, to build anything you need man, but anything to last, you need an institute. So we said, okay, we must build an institute which is a lasting institute. And what are the governing rules of this institute that will make it? So other thing we decided was our NASSCOM will not pay for anyone, simple thing like expenses. Anyone who gives a presentation to our NASSCOM meeting, they will not be allowed to use their company name. But they will say, listen, my team has an entire research and homework, I'm presenting it. Why at least give me a little bit credit? So we said, no, sorry. If this is an India level, industry level platform, you cannot, otherwise don't contribute. We don't mind if you don't contribute, but we don't want to dilute the spirit of it. And I'll tell you a very interesting story here. PMO had called a meeting, had taken a delegation to Russia, where there were pharma delegation. Hello, Dr. Ramni, welcome. So there was a pharma delegation and there was a IT delegation or software delegation. Both had export potential. Now, who will give a presentation to Russian delegates? Som Mittal, who was the president of NASSCOM. But then Som looked around, he saw Harish Manglik, who was chairman of NASSCOM, as well as chairman of Accenture India. So he said, he's there, the Harish should give a presentation. Harish looked around and he saw N. Chandra at that time, who is now the current chairman of Tata Sons, was chairman of TCS, CEO of TCS. So India's largest company is here. So Chandra should give a presentation. So they approached Chandra. Chandra, would you give a presentation? So Chandra said, of course I will. But then Som said, Chandra, but in this presentation, there are 4 slides of your 4 competitors about their case studies. Could you talk about them? Chandra, without blinking, is of course, I'm speaking on behalf of India. I have no problem. And he spoke about those 4 competing companies of TCS to that delegation. So that's the kind of what you call India first spirit that we have built. And now, just 2 weeks back, so Mittal called me when he read the book. He said, Harish, I read that story. I had forgotten that happened. When I read it, it came alive. So what it means is, it is the culture of the way of doing things. So people don't even pay any high value to it. I put a high value for a different reason. But to him, it was just a natural way of doing it. That is the culture, that is the DNA of NASSCOM. And to me, that is the key parameter by which, when you have these fiercely competing companies come together and also act at a country level or India level, and I would say any problem becomes sort of solvable. It reached to a point where China wanted to compete with Indian IT industry. And so they appointed foresters to come up with a master plan to see how China also can grow in technology services industry. Because they also wanted to earn foreign exchange. They also wanted to create jobs. They also wanted to bring in all these changes. You know what Forrester said, because John McCarthy, who was the CEO of Forrester, said, and he used to come to India very often. He told them, you cannot compete with India unless you create NASSCOM equivalent organization. He said, I've never seen anywhere in the world, IBM, Infosys, TCS, Accenture, Genpact, all sitting together and working at a industry level, keeping India first, keeping no personal, not mixing with it with the personal agenda, consensus driven. And so those are the, I would say, values which differentiated NASSCOM from others, and it allowed, and it built a trust between us and the policymakers. Once the trust is built, the whole ease of doing business or the friction of doing business goes away dramatically. So all the 150 regulations which were strangulating us were removed another, let's say, 2 or 3 years of time. But not only that, we came up with the schemes like, say, STPI scheme. Now, STPI scheme created a level playing field. Now, in a level playing field, meaning it allowed large number of small companies to take birth. It was not driven for few companies, because if you have to go to 100 miles far away to an SEZ to do export, very few companies will take that risk. But if you can do it in your own city, in your own, let's say, building next to you in some IT park, any entrepreneur can take that risk. So it allowed large thousands and thousands of companies to take birth, which brought in the level playing field. And that's a process that is continued. And you can see the impact of that happening in every policy that is coming out, and of course in consultation with the various stakeholders and with the government, that always we try our best to have a level playing field and be fair to everyone. It is not driven by a particular company or a particular group of companies or a particular segment, and which has allowed even segments like BPO to take birth. It has allowed segments like engineering services to take birth. It has allowed many such segments to take birth. We call it, when you have open discussion, you can differentiate between a signal and a noise. And once you know which noise, because every signal that you identify and book and you grow, it can add $10 billion in 5, 10, and 7 years. And the $10 billion of exchange jobs, it's a huge contribution to Indian economy. So, and in a technology world where you don't know which one is the signal, which is the noise. We all are familiar with it. So we have gone through that phase, and we try to watch and then say, hey, how do we bring that skill of identifying the signal, and then what we have learned in, let's say, growing IT services, a set of best practices, how do we replicate that for BPO? How do we replicate that for engineering? How do we replicate that for global capability centers? I give another example, and I think I'll hand it over to Dr. Phatak. I think many years back, many of you remember that IBM and other companies are asked to go in the mid-70s of India, saying you dilute the equity, otherwise don't stay here. And many of them left. Then our industry started. We started exporting. We started having Fortune 500 customers. And they were surprised because we had IIT Bombay, Dr. Phatak, you may not like it, but IIT Bombay, IIT Chennai, all these engineers doing what we call low-end work. Engineers, basically. In those days, low-end work was we were branded by the Western world as techno coolies, cyber coolies. But they were so good that they were impressed. Oh, my God, these guys can do this. And it was just beyond their imagination of saying the capabilities of these engineers. We used to call in, if you remember, Dr. Phatak, Krishnamurti became Krish in those days. Now, of course, it's becoming Krishnamurti again. But that was the time that all those changes were taking place. And we really built a phenomenal brand with these customers. So they say, we would like to now set up a 100% own back office operation in India. Now, 100% own back office operation is a very different challenge. So I remember having conversations with Mr. Kohli, with Mr. Azim Premji, Narayan Murthy, and many others. Should we allow this back office operation 100% owned by multinationals? But they may take away our people by paying double the salary. Our business, which we are doing with them, may go to them, and we may lose that business. So there were lots of such concerns. But on the other end, we realized that if we build a great brand with them, by allowing them to come in, 10 more areas within the same company will open up for business to us. Plus, we would learn, if they come to India, their best practices, which we didn't have an access to it when we were just doing directly services. So having competition in-house in the country is good for us. Now, maybe we were young, so we took that risk or whatever you call it. So we went to meet Dr. Mohan Singh and we say, he was the finance minister. We would like you to allow 100% ownership. So, before that. So before then we were discussing it and we said, what do we do? So in that conversation, maybe Shri Ganesh remembers that somebody said that whoever develops human capital of India is us. And even an Indian company who doesn't is not us. And everyone agreed that MNCs will add to the human capital of India. They will sharpen them. They will provide the best practices. They will bring their culture of discipline. And so that, and today also that is our reference point. When we are confused, we are not clear, we use that as a reference point to take a decision. So on that reference point, we decided we must allow these companies to come in. And then we met our finance minister. He laughed. He said, are you crazy? Abhi to un log ko nikala. And the bureaucrats were saying that you want to bring the Britishers back to India or what? Kiske dalal ho tum? So we were ridiculed by them. But Manmohan Singh saw the value behind what we were saying, why we were saying, and he agreed. And then they're allowed to come to India. Now today, that particular segment, Dr. Phatak, is 1,800 R&D centers in India, employs more than 1.3 million people. They're all high-end work now. And many of them are now co-creating future with their own customers, with their own parent companies. Phenomenal. And they are going to bring in a sea change. It will really challenge our industry in some sense, third-party service providers, to also continue to raise the level of business transformational services that they are offering and we are offering. And if we are also doing very well, and we'll be able to offer same services to Indian customers as well as Indian government in order to change India. So our vision towards India moving towards as a digital society is going to really accelerate going forward. I think this is, I'll stop here, and maybe other things I'll cover during the Q&A. Over to you, Dr. Phatak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harish, for so brilliantly tracing the entire history of the Indian IT industry. My first pleasant task is, of course, to unveil the book jointly with Harish, and therefore I request Harish to kindly hold the book in his hand so that the world can formally recognize the book being launched.
Professor Phatak, your face is not visible.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
Is this okay?
yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now here is, now it is.
Congratulations, Harish sir. Congratulations, Harish sir.
Before, sorry, I suppose I am to continue, right? What?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Right. So before I start asking some questions, why am I getting my own echo? Yeah, okay, it's fine now. I am supposed to felicitate Harish Mehta for such a wonderful work on all our behalf. And I was struggling to find out what words I should use. Then I recalled that when I read the book once, twice, thrice, I felt like writing a congratulatory note to him. As his felicitation, I would seek your permission to just read out that letter because that reflects my feelings and hopefully feelings of the entire fraternity. The note is titled From the Eyes of Another Maverick. When I first read The Maverick Effect, the exhilarating feelings invoked were those of awe and admiration. Awe because of the vastness of the canvas painted. It is not just about NASSCOM, nor it is just about Harish Mehta, his family and their ventures. It is about a beautiful journey undertaken to realize a larger cause, a larger national dream. It is about the million problems faced on the way and the resolution of each of those problems through wise diplomacy and resolute action. It is about taking a large number of industry stalwarts together, each of whom was a tall figure and has been there and done that. Most of all, it is about identifying maverick sentiment in the minds and hearts of several other similar outliers and accentuating that spirit collaboratively to have a nationwide impact on an entire industry. It is about the evolutionary journey of an industry which the world initially ignored as being too small and too inconsequential to a level where the global businesses now count upon it to provide solutions to their own digital transformation. Admiration, because the man who scripted this history with several like-minded people has written it in an amazingly human way. The narrative brings out this exciting history as a gripping story, camouflaging his extensive background research in collecting its detailed facts. The switch between NASSCOM, the organization, and Harish Mehta, the person, happens in a very natural way throughout the book, illustrating their inseparability. The real admiration is because the book invokes desire for continued action in the minds of Gen Next. Indeed, nothing would please a teacher more than to see such subtle and not so subtle reminder for continued action to millions of Indian youngsters now contributing to this industry. Among the teaching community, I am considered a bit of a maverick myself. Maybe that is why I can relate to the larger spirit of the book wholeheartedly. Of course, the maverick similarity between us ends quickly. A teacher has an uncanny advantage of being able to bask in reflected glory. When your students post extraordinary achievements in the real world, it is assumed that you must have done something useful. An industry maverick has to build things oneself, bit by bit and bite by bite. Nevertheless, what an immense pleasure it is for this teacher to read the narrative of how the IT industry is now doing things terabyte by terabyte and poised to do so exabyte by exabyte in coming years. I have the privilege of knowing Harish and family quite intimately for many decades now. I must honestly admit that I could never foresee his authoring abilities in all these decades. I also had the privilege of seeing NASSCOM grow. If I were to write about either, it will take volumes. If I were to write in detail about this book itself, the task will necessitate writing another book. Suffice it to say that this book must be read by the young and old, by one and all in the Indian IT industry. It is a must read for all students in our entire higher education segment to be motivated to script the future history of this great nation on the rise.
Wow, thank you.
This teacher is delighted to salute the Maverick for so ably illuminating the path. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatt. Thank you. For very generous.
It is my pleasure to ask a few questions here. So let me begin by the first question, which is about the very title. Harish, why is this book called Maverick Effect instead of just Story of NASSCOM?
I would say, first of all, one of my objectives behind the book is that the NASSCOM, the way we works, the entire business model of NASSCOM, values and best practices, and the way it keeps reinventing every 5 years, 6 years, can be replicated to any non-profit organization. So I didn't want the name to block saying it's only NASSCOM book. There is enough, my sense is that good best practices in the book, or the lessons, whatever you call it, or the values can be replicated to other segments. So that was one reason. The second reason was, when we say Maverick Effect, if you see even the logo, here, it shows the colorful bands, different color bands. So each one of you, Dr. Phatak, represents that band. And it is the collective strength of all of us,
Yes.
working at an India level,
Yes.
with consensus, and we taking those decisions, is the real Maverick Effect. Say 1 + 1 = to here 111. Like, so that is why our industry had 30% growth compounded for last 30 years.
Correct.
It would not have been possible without these Mavericks coming together and working together collaboratively.
Very true. To the audience and to the questioner, I would like to add the following. Maverick is not just a non-conformist. Maverick is also someone who is focused on achieving a larger dream, but not alone, but traveling that journey together by taking a whole lot of like-minded people along. And that is what Harish represents. So the author of the book may be Harish Mehta, but you can implicitly add Ashank Desai, you can implicitly add Ram Durai, you can implicitly add Kohli Sir, you can add practically everybody who has participated in that journey. And the Maverick effect is truly felt only when one Maverick is able to galvanize large number of other Mavericks. In fact, I would like the younger members of the computer society, and particularly our students, to understand the power of the Maverick spirit and to work together to move forward. Let me go to the next.
Here, Dr. Phatak,
Yes.
about a year or 2 year and a half ago, there was some controversy between Google and Paytm. Something was happening about the Google store and what I don't remember the details. So at that time, Maharashtra, one bureaucrat in the Maharashtra government told me, he said, why are these startups like Rajput warriors? They are fighting against each other and killing, and not even looking at whether the Paytm has a Chinese money behind it. Or you need to properly analyze, think through, and then you take a position. But don't let, if you're not together, if you're not united, the person who has the muscle power, person who has the media power will win. So you need to be very, very sensitive from that perspective. You must come together under one umbrella.
In fact, I think you are leading to the answer of my second question, which is, will Indian ICT industry sustain its growth? And if yes, how? In the coming, not just years, but in decades.
See, we have been very, if you look at the last 30 years of technology services industry, every time the new technology has come, the new wave, I would say, when we started, we were just simply doing body shopping, as we used to call it. Then came the client server wave, which allowed us to start exploring the offshore work. Then came the Java and the open source wave. Then came the internet wave. Then came smart wave, phone wave. So because every time new technology comes in, every customer in the world would like to integrate that technology in their existing applications or come up with new applications to offer better product, better service, more competitive. So there is a, what do you call it? Each new technology wave will open up bigger and bigger opportunities for our industry. Now, today there are we have identified 9 advanced technologies out of say 100 who will allow a growth for our industry. So we are focused on those 9 technologies like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, IoT, and all, 5G, quantum. So we have tried to, not quantum, but these are that we have identified these technologies around which we see transformational growth happening, so that educational institutes can gear up with the skilling and so that we have learned that practice of how to bring new technology, build capabilities in advance, and then when the client is ready, when he starts small and then grow and build. So by that time, we will be ready with all our expertise to grab it. So that gives a huge comfort factor. And plus, we only have 30% of the global outsourcing market.
Right.
So there's enough potential to grow.
Correct. In fact, the gist of whatever Harish Bhai said is the capability of the Indian technologists to adapt to new technology quickly and simultaneously, while understanding the transformational needs of the clients, apply the new knowledge to them. As long as, see, everybody in the world will try to do that. But the advantage Indian industry has is that the Indians are a little bit faster in doing this. And if we continue to work collaboratively, there is absolutely no question of ICT industry not continuing its spectacular growth for several decades. Here is a question about NASSCOM, Harish. Having established the branding for Indian IT services industry, what is the future mandate for NASSCOM? I mean, I understand that you don't represent NASSCOM here,
Correct.
but we would all like to hear your personal views and personal opinion and future crystal gazing.
See, if you see the last, because of COVID, digitalization, in terms of it has educated people to a level which it would have taken maybe 10 years. So which has now opened up massive opportunities for our industry. Now, our challenge is, my view would be, and I concur with many of my colleagues, is how do we convert this opportunity in a sustainable competitive advantage? And that can only happen if we push innovation to the boundaries. It can only happen if we figure out a way, how do we synergize the ecosystem and maximize that synergy. So once we need to now build a competitive edge. It's a great opportunity for us to drive it so that another 10 years we can continue with that growth. And in that process, we also said, and we looked at the global in terms of, we are so lucky that we have great youth who is ready to learn coding. So coding is not considered, used to be considered in the old days, something which, nerds will do, and everyone wanted to become a manager, sit in a cubicle. And so that whole thinking has changed dramatically now. So our people are ready to learn now, learn new ways of doing things. And not many countries in the world where the youth is doing it. So what it means is that a huge opportunity will open up globally. So as a NASSCOM, we said India should become a digital talent nation. So we are working with the government in coming up with various policies and procedures by which you open up India emerging as a digital talent nation. Now, this is not only IT. Now, this talent would be for manufacturing industry. It would be for government applications. It could be for startups, system integration. There are a number of areas that will open up, but expand the skill base many fold. And third would be the startup world that we all know. Of course, it's not under our control. We can't manage that, but still, whatever best we can do. So technology, we believe, is like lightning. It's bottle lightning, not lightning, bottle lightning.
Bottle lighting, you have to open it up.
You have to open up. So you have to let the youngsters go around it and leverage it to solve India's problems. Sorry. Yeah.
No, very, very good. In fact, as a corollary, if you permit me to add, the NASSCOM vision is fairly aligned with the vision of CSI as well. Is it possible that NASSCOM and CSI would work together, particularly in the context of large engineering institutions that we have, from which CSI draws a large membership, for the benefit of improving both their learnability and their technical skills? Then I think both NASSCOM and CSI together can contribute to building of the talent pool that you are mentioning, which will keep the story going for many decades. I'm sorry for making an offhand suggestion.
Dr. Phatak, I call it as a tumhare muh mein ghee shakkar. Because today our industry, I don't have the exact numbers, but we must be spending close to $15 billion a year in reskilling or training the youngsters. If that work can happen as a natural way of doing it, you just see a phenomenal gain all across. So I would really welcome CSI to really step up and take up that charter and work on it. Absolutely. See, to look at every individual. I mean, for them to remain relevant, when the continuously changing technology, who is going to help them? Somebody has to step in. And
so let me take this opportunity to announce as a Maverick to another that from NASSCOM side, you will help to coordinate, and from CSI side, I take the responsibility of coordinating, but together we shall set up a giant mechanism across this country for sharpening the talent pool that we have. And it is not just
I'm more than happy, Doctor, to work with you. Absolutely. No, absolutely. Will be my privilege to work with you on this. Yeah.
I apologize to my colleagues for digressing a bit, but I believe that what I'm speaking is not just in the interest of the nation, not just in the interest of our talent pool, but in the interest of our society, IEEE, SCM, and everyone. It is in this context that my next question is that how do you feel the professional organizations such as CSI, IEEE, and SCM will stay relevant tomorrow?
See, there's a big challenge in front of every institute, including NASSCOM. Thanks to internet, knowledge is available freely, instantly. Thanks to the video conferencing tools, no need now for these associations, which was a major strength, is to organize events. And so that also need has completely gone away. Anybody now can outsource all the activities from hotel. Even that also they can be doing it. So how do you create value for your members?
Yes.
And to me, that comes back to what we just said before, that every individual has to remain relevant. Technology is continuously changing. And to remain relevant, these institutes have to change their way of doing things, give up the old ways of doing stuff, bring up new ways of doing things, and let them start taking over. Just to give one example, in one conference, they came up with an idea of who will select the speakers. So they asked the people who had registered, okay, you give us the names of speakers, we'll go and get them.
Yeah, wonderful.
Now, so that model, you can imagine the impact it will have. So if you get a speaker of your nature, or for your liking, it can change the entire culture of that, and people will come from all over to attend that. So, and the second need I also strongly believe is the hybrid is given, will be there.
Yes.
But the need for networking, need for face-to-face is going to multiply actually. Otherwise,
Yes.
so how does this institute provide that face-to-face networking facility, which in a proper, I mean, different way, not just networking meaning meeting each other, but in a productive way, to drive it by which they feel comfortable on coming to that and say, hey, I'll get this additional facility by coming over here. It means giving in advance all the databases of who all are coming. And yeah.
I entirely agree with you. In fact, the hybrid mode appears to have come to stay.
Yeah.
Because while online activities can make you far more efficient, but it still lacks the spontaneity that happens in personal interaction. I mean, all of us here will recall the fantastic occasions of every CSI event, whether it is annual convention or Nashik chapter or a meeting in Coimbatore. What amount of discussions used to happen outside the standard sessions over a cup of tea, etc., etc. Those are miraculous things. In fact, you have started answering the last question that I wish to ask you is what is your suggestion to CSI member on how to start rebuilding this professional body which will serve both the purpose of members and also will help nation in digital and IT automation mission. So now this is a very specific question, and I am sorry, although there are multiple institutions organizing this event, but I have unfortunately a little, I love everyone, but I love CSI a little more. So I am asking this question in the context of CSI. Harish bhai.
Frankly, I don't have an answer to your question because I'm not that deep into CSI to understand. But I'll tell you what we did at NASSCOM. When we started, simple thing we did was, Ashank is not here, but 15, 20 of us were together in a room, and we must have met a couple of times. First, to define the vision for NASSCOM. And you'll be surprised that our vision was to build healthy software ecosystem.
Oh, I see.
It was not to lobby with the government to get all the regulations removed. Lobbying was one of the major activity, but we must build the ecosystem. Healthy, and that to healthy software ecosystem. Of course, then later on it kept on modifying. But to me, that is the starting point.
Okay.
The second point, of course, in the process, you have to analyze various trends and others. What the role of CSI, how you can structure your legacy challenges, how do you end them in, and then the second suggestion I would give it, based on NASSCOM again experience, we realize all of us are doing volunteering work. Few hours a day here, there, week, and whatnot. But that is not required to build an institute. You need to build a strong institute. So secretariat, let's say. Like in our case, we recruited, as you know, Devang Mehta.
Yes.
And one-man army
Yes.
made complete change. So but that, he was motivated. I believe he studied at Bharati Vidya Bhavan.
Yes.
And then when I met him, while reading newspapers, he had tears in his eyes. I said, Devang, why are you crying? He said, no, when will, in Gujarati, he said, Apno desh kyare sudhar se. When will our country change? Because he was reading the corruption issues on the paper.
Yes.
So he was very passionate to change India.
Correct.
And then convincing him was another challenge. But after convincing him, when he joined, outstanding contribution.
Yes.
So we built a very strong secretariat around Devang. That made a big difference. Because part-time work helps up to a point, but I'm sorry, but that's not what I would favor. But that's another input I would give.
No, I entirely agree with you, Harish bhai. If we couple the suggestions that you are making with the strong ethos that exists already in our chapters and somehow combine both the organizational secretarial setup with the intense activity at chapters and at the national level and focus on mentoring at every stage, I think we can do a transformation. Thank you very much. I'm at the end of my...
Just to add to here, Doctor,
Yes.
one of the challenge would be the funding. So like in our case, we said 40 of us who were 40 companies who started, that for the next 3 years, we all decided to underwrite all the expenses.
Well,
Because there's a risk. Somebody has to take the risk. And here, CSI, there is not a revenue earning. We'll have to find other players to come in.
no, but we just decided, no, NASSCOM and CSI will work together. Your money and our talent. But we'll figure out a way. Thank you very much for these inputs.
Sure.
Thank you, friends. I will now like to hand over back to Mr. Mohan and the other colleague organizers. Back to you.
Somebody right there.
Can I ask a question, please?
Good, sir.
I am Tyagarajan here. I was general manager in ECIL. I was heading software and consultancy division. And my personal feeling is NASSCOM did contribute towards the growth of software industry, especially application software. And today things have changed. I think we must focus on embedded system technology, system software, and also embedded software technologies. And we must also focus on, like Chinese, we must also focus on development of software, hardware. Hardware is also very important. Hardware growth is lacking. And there are a lot of challenges in the field of biotechnology. And biotechnology is emerging. And that is life sciences. Even Einstein, towards the end of his life, he said he should have learned biology. In fact, he wanted to do some studies in life sciences. Therefore, if we do some pioneering work in the country, NASCOM also can do, or even CSI can do. If we can do some pioneering work in the field of life sciences, I think we will emerge as a super player in the at the international level. This is what I feel. We are spending a lot of money on space technology and all that.
Tyagarajan,
I think we must take.
I like your vision about India becoming a superpower. But from NASSCOM perspective, frankly, we will not do any touch or take over responsibility which we cannot do well. So we are very clear that, like, when I'll tell you, 25 years back, Professor MGK Menon came to us. He said, you guys have done a great job on IT. Now your next task, because you built such a great brand, you work on corruption as an issue. And see in the next 10 years, corruption is removed from India. Now, it was a very wishful thinking, but we have no capabilities to, frankly, take on such issues. As far as embedded software is concerned, we are very deep in embedded. You will see India will emerge as an embedded leader globally. No question on it. But life sciences, that's a domain area, frankly, we don't understand. But we will continuously, we keep recommending to the government. So they have now created BIRAC and many other such mechanisms by which we have now 5,000 biotech startups. And we would like that number to go to 50,000. So we do give that sort of inputs to the government, but we don't get involved directly on it. Yeah, okay. Next.
That is very nice. It's a very good answer.
Thank you. Sanjay.
I think Sashi had raised his hand before me, so let Sashi have a go first.
Sure, please. So I only see few people here. Sashi, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah. No, I can't hear you. You're on mute. Unmute.
Unmute yourself. Sashi, Kelkar, you have to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Mr. Harish Mehta, I don't know whether you remember me, 50 years back outside Madras Cafe and in your end room in the Regal Theatre, when I come to hire services for PDP 9, PDP 8, sorry.
PDP, yeah, okay.
Okay. The question I want to ask, recently we had a HDFC and HDFC Bank merger. And at that time, the statement made by Mr. Parekh was that when the father grows old, the son takes the responsibility for the father. Of course, he didn't say that there has to be only one son. So do you think IT needs to have many sons, and it is the time for IT to become the foundation for other disciplines to rise? One of the rising disciplines I see is digital healthcare. You see the number of giant grants that have been granted, and most of the IITs now are having departments of digital healthcare. So digital healthcare can digital healthcare be considered as one of the sons of IT? And then are there any potential new sons, not new, other sons, which we should foster?
No, you're right, absolutely. I mean, see, again, NASSCOM belongs to its members, and the members are earning revenue out of technology businesses, from startups to whatnot. So when you say digital healthcare, there the real owner is the government, partly, maybe substantially, I would say. So whatever it is. But what we are doing right now is we have selected many areas like healthcare, education, judiciary, rural women entrepreneurship. So like that, we are recommending to the government, they all should be digital platform driven. And once the government makes up their mind, and the Mehta has launched a number of such initiatives, including natural language translation. And what we do is, once they launch it, they need certain capabilities. So from our members, some companies will contribute their resources towards that, building that platform. So the digital healthcare platform is doing actually very well. They already were operational in 7 cities in the country. And Ramdurais and the Nandan Nilekanis of the world are deeply engaged in that initiative. So no, that we would like what Nandan did with Aadhaar and UPI, and now the time has come to build digital platforms around for large number of social areas. So it becomes very inclusive, and diversity is also managed very well. But NASSCOM directly will not take that responsibility. That is not, we don't have any strengths, even capabilities to do such work. But we'll have companies, say, historically, NASSCOM has never taken up directly any responsibility. Like education, there's a huge shortage of people. So people were saying, you conduct training programs. So we allowed, rather than we taking over, we came up with a policy infrastructure by which NIITs and EPTECs and other training institutes, including engineering colleges, MCA programs, all that can change and they contribute rather than we doing it. In the short term, it appears, let's do it quickly and we can offer it. There are few enthusiastic companies who are willing to do it, but that is not the solution. So we stay away. We want to remain a catalyst and not take over any particular activity, specifically if it is profit driven. That is not our cup of tea. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Harish.
Thank you.
Deepak, hello.
Okay, let me take a go. First, it's a privilege to be in a session where, I have elder brothers like Harish and Deepak, sort of sparring with each other in a positive way. And that gives us motivation to actually relate a few things which Harish mentioned about NASSCOM. I'll just take remember two snippets. First of all, the statistics that you mentioned, 37% representation of women, it actually stares us in the face, but we never realize it. And today I was in a ESG steering committee meeting where MSCI, the Morgan Stanley Index, talks about an aspirational number of 30% women in whichever investee companies that need to really meet the ESG mark. So here we are, already meeting this mark at an industry level, and we should be proud of that statistic. You talked about captives, and I'll give an example because I spent some time in a captive a few years. In 2000, and you also talked about India first. Of course, as a TCSer, ex-TCSer, I feel very proud of that story that you talked about with the Russian delegation and Chandra. So similarly, in 2002, near about that time, the BPO industry had just sort of taken its early strides. And I was representing Citigroup at that point of time. And the mantra was that Philippines and South Africa were sort of taking out business because their way of working together was far greater than Indian BPO companies and Indian MNCs. So this was another case where the likes of GE, Citigroup, and other Indian BPO companies at that point of time joined hands, looking at the Indian interest at heart. Yeah. And I remember we went and met Dr. Karnik in the Delhi office, and Kiran was very gung-ho. He initially set up a small team because we were all NASSCOM members, but to give the BPO industry a fillip, he participated in 4 or 5 committee meetings with the Department of Telecom. The idea was to relax norms so that we could do services for foreign companies as well as Indian foreign clients as well as Indian clients with the same infrastructure. Once we did that, Kiran came out and told, it will be very difficult to sustain this the way we are going. And in the same way that NASSCOM did earlier, please form an association of only BPO companies. NASSCOM will help you with whatever resources it has. And there we had the same competitors, joining hands. And the name that was given, because it was a statutory name, other service providers, we formed the Other Service Providers Association of India, with G being the being the president, and I being the founder vice president. So this was another case where we used to poach people for 1,000 rupees a month difference. People used to go from one company to the other, and here we were trying to fight out a case for India as a destination, and in that way the elder brother NASSCOM helped sort of facilitate this. So this was the second example was of skilling. At the end, Deepak talked about how CSI and NASSCOM could work together. 2001, the CIARC, the CIARC body which looked after the South Asian companies similar to CSI membership across the Asian region, they were doing a regional skills survey, and they asked India to also do it, and CSI was given the task. And we took obviously help from NASSCOM to make sure that we get respondents. We had a dismal response. It was hardly 4% or 5% of the workforce. But in that, so out of, I think in those days, the number was 2.5, 3 lakhs. I may be off by a couple of lakhs here and there. But believe me, when this cohort was added to the regional numbers, 12,000 looked like, you have done a fabulous job of getting these numbers from India. But that was the first instance where CSI did a very humble effort of collecting skill sets across the population across India. And I think after that, things, 3-4 years, we tried doing it, but things took a different turn within the organization. But this is one area where I think both organizations could work together. Yeah. I just thought that this would be something that would relate to, what Deepak suggested, that, CSI and NASSCOM could possibly work together. And I'm not taking any bias, Deepak. I have 3 labels here: CSI, IEEE, and ACM on this call. So I think I have done my quota of speaking here. And thank you very much to MD and Mohan for setting this up. We don't get to meet nowadays, and this is an opportunity. Thank you once again.
Michael, I will ask few questions to the speakers. Sir, there is a feeling that in India, IT industry grew at the cost of core engineering industry. Is that right?
Do you agree? Do you believe that? Let me ask you differently. How many engineers India is producing every year? 700,000 maybe?
1.5 million. 1.5 million. 15 lakhs.
And over the last 20 years, how many we would have produced? Over the last 20 years, how many engineers we would have produced? 20 million, 30 million, I don't know. Some number.
It will be about 100.
And only out of 5.2 engineers will be only 3 million. So the rest of the 90% market is available to manufacturing. Why would they suffer?
No, what is the reason?
There's such a massive manpower resource available. So there's no way it can impact. As a matter of fact, it will strengthen the manufacturing. Sorry, yeah.
I would just like to add that NASSCOM has never worked against any other industry. The manufacturing industry in India has its own story and has its own growth path. It just so happens that that industry has not grown as spectacularly as the IT industry. However, it will be wrong to say that that industry is not growing. It is certainly not growing as rapidly and as fast as, say, for example, Chinese industry. But we have core strengths in manufacturing, and over the coming years and decades, you will see that this industry goes through another transformation, primarily because the entire world is looking at not a substitution, but a supplement to the global manufacturing other than the China and East Asia. And therefore, I think Indian manufacturing industry has great time ahead, provided they work together and they resolve problems collaboratively rather than individually.
And Mohan, I'll tell you, I have to
IT,
say,
the
Yeah,
manufacturing
added to
industry has to work together with IT industry. Industry
Right.
4.0 is not going to grow without use of IT.
absolutely, fully agree. It will definitely make a big, big push. See, India's strength is software. Remember that. If you see, because of our 70 years or whatever, 1,000 years of history, whatever you call it, there are so many bottlenecks we have created for the physical world as such. Procedures, bureaucracy, all coming from, if you say still today also 100 different forms a manufacturing firm has to fill in. They can't even raise money, lots of challenges with the manufacturing firm has. And there were all these different taxations didn't allow anyone to grow beyond certain size. And so there's so many restrictions were imposed on the manufacturing, which we understood very early in the game. And we kept the government, as we call it, don't do micromanage our industry. You give us the umbrella support. That's all we need. You let the industry fend for itself. And
And also-
let us do a job.
Yeah, possibly the investment in core engineering industry may be much higher than in IT industry. That is one way IT
Correct.
industry is able to accelerate much faster. And then the revenue earning potential is quite high.
Yeah.
The services, you earn it in foreign exchange. Whereas most of the core engineering, they meet the domestic market. So where the sustainability is much lower. That
Yeah,
could
but
be one reason.
all those issues, that
Yes.
industry has to come together and realize and say, okay, here is software industry. They will offer their engineers to go abroad. Argument say, are we going to stop it? How do we match or how do we counter that within our own game plan? Our industry offers ES or stock options. Can we
Yes.
offer stock options to our employees? So there are
The
various
earning potential in IT industry is much higher. So the people are willing to focus in joining IT industry rather than core engineering. So that was the mindset also the problem. No? That is one thing.
No, there was
Okay.
one time the TCS had more mechanical engineers doing software work
Yes.
than the L&T had mechanical engineers or something. Because they
Yeah.
also are very attractive to join. And
Correct.
Mr. Nayak was complaining to us, you are paying higher salary. We said, we didn't stop you from paying higher salaries. We didn't stop you from recruiting people from the engineering colleges. We have never come in between. It is just your industry has to figure out your ways of solving it. And I'm sure we will have the similar issues tomorrow. Startup world, but we don't know who is going to come from where to where. I think that's just a market forces company. They have to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, there is one question. The cyber security and data privacy are becoming global concern. NASSCOM has done something in this area because that is.
We are very, very deeply involved on both the issues. If you see the data protection bill, we have done phenomenal work. It's just the government need to now have come up. They've been some delaying it. It would have come a year ago. Data protection law should have come in. Cyber security law also, as we understand, is ready. But there are, again, they have their own internal reasons for not coming up. But we are very deeply involved in both the issues. We are quite concerned about it. But as a matter of fact, we are not frankly seeing it as a concern. We are seeing it as a huge opportunity for our India in both the areas. In cyber security, we had identified, I think, $15 billion opportunity.
Even the GDPR and CCA, all the
I think the massive opportunities we can open up if we get the act out as early as possible. Yeah, there are a few caveats where government still wants to keep the control over surveillance and whatnot. So once they sorted out that, I think it should not be very. I have fully with you on that. We are deeply involved and we want to see both the segments. Our framework is created for industry.
Yeah. There is another question again related to NASSCOM interest. Basically, people still feel that NASSCOM is more focused in export market than in domestic market. Is it what way?
No, that's not true at all. No, it is the domestic market. If you look at government, have you ever worked with the government? Have you looked at the purchase contract? Have you looked at the project reference, how they define the terms of references for the project? So if you come up with very unreasonable terms and conditions, Dr. Phatak knows that one of the big doctor I was telling you the other day, that we were bidding and we were partner with HP, my company, Onward Novel, and HP, we had bidded together. Now, for that particular project, Dr. Phatak's budget for, I don't know for whom it was, so the budget was 10 crore. Our quotation was 57 crores. So he was laughing. He said, what's wrong with you guys? I said, no, we looked at your terms and conditions of the tender and we say what can go wrong and what is the cost of it if it goes wrong. So we added up all those numbers. So it came to 57 crores. As an Indian businessman in general will take risk and say, no, I can manage and not quote in it. But a multinational will not take that risk at all. But they know if they do something wrong, government will go after them first. So we are actually we call model RFP. We are given to every state government, every department in central government. NASSCOM has formed. That was given 3 years back, but nobody has yet implemented. If they follow that model, it will be so easy to do business with government. They'll be happy, we would be happy. And what you saw as the Infosys income tax issue would not have happened probably and not gone to the public and all that. Could have been sorted out much earlier. So there are challenges from that perspective. But our NASSCOM per se, we are very much focused on domestic industry. There is not but it will take time for it to develop. Indian customers are now at least coming forward and automating it. In my sense, some of them may even go advanced compared to most of the foreign customers.
Yeah, one question related to your basic interest. What made you to pivot to engineering services so early in your career when it was still a very niche and unknown area in the business?
See, it was around 2005, 4, I don't know, when I had sold my stake in Onward Novel. So I had to find a new business opportunity to go after. Now, we were already representing number of engineering companies as a reseller. But to offer services and solutions, in those days, the workstations were very expensive. And the engineering software on top of it also equally expensive. The Unix workstations were there. And now, if you're expensive hardware and software as a service provider, if you don't keep it busy for 8 hours a day, you lose money. Now, if you don't have that kind of business, you can make it a business of 1 hour or 2 hours a day. Why would you do it? So that's why the engineering business didn't grow for years. But in 2005 and 6, I saw this engineering software being ported to a PC, personal computer. I said, this is it. In the next 3 years, this software would run on a PC. The cost will drop dramatically. And now you'll be able to offer competitive solution to the customer. So that was the reason I took the risk on engineering. And today I'm very happy with that decision of paying.
Yeah, it turned out to be good.
Yeah.
There is a question to Professor Phatak. What are the areas the current students are expected to focus in order to have a smooth and safe future?
The safest bet is not to pick one technical topic or the other, but to improve the learnability. Now, I believe one fundamental difference between IIT style education and the education in other institution is to incorporate this feature in the minds of all our students, that they have to constantly learn new things, they have to be ready to learn new things, because any technology or any particular part of curriculum that they study today is likely to become not very meaningful in their early part of the career itself. It does not mean that they must not learn basic principles of all important technology. But I would still submit that they should improve their learnability, and they should do that by actually trying to quickly learn and adapt whatever are the technologies which are currently relevant to them and to the world.
Okay. And there is another question to Professor Phatak. Post-COVID, the gaps in learning noticed with respect to employability is growing. How to address that?
I do not believe that the gap in employability is growing because of COVID. The gap appears to be growing because you have a supply and demand situation at the entry level. But please note that in the IT industry today, there is a huge reverse gap in supply and demand at the level of experience of 5 to 15 years. In fact, I don't know whether you are aware, but there is a huge attrition in the industry at the experience level.
Yes.
So please understand that these statistics will always keep changing depending upon the supply and demand situation. However, I submit that every student who has worked diligently and has improved that learnability, plus has a command on whatever is immediately relevant, will never be without a good job. That much I can tell you.
Okay, corollary to that, to Mr. Harish, what are the HR challenges in coping with the fast-growing IT field in India?
I'm sorry?
What are the HR, human resources challenges in coping with the fast-growing IT field in India? This corollary to what Professor has addressed.
Oh, yeah, these are all known. I mean, the serious challenges which we are going forward, high attrition rate is there. And then, of course, working from home, hybrid model again is a huge challenge to manage. And then to remain competitive without the collaborative work of the people together. So there are umpteen challenges on HR going forward. But on the other end, the people are also so productive and enthusiastic. So that companies have to figure out how do we manage these two parameters.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Maithili, can you take over? Maithili? Maithili?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Yeah, if you have some questions, please answer.
Actually, there is no questions in the chat box, sir.
Okay.
You raised all the questions, sir.
Yeah, I think Kundu wants to ask one question.
Yes, he raised his hand.
Yeah, 1 minute. Kundu?
Professor Harish, am I audible? Good
Yes,
evening.
yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Thank you for the nice lecture that Harish Mehta and Phatak has given now. Now, my question is to Mr. Harish Mehta. Status and future of hardware industry in India. Kindly let us know the status and present status and the future of hardware industry in India.
I guess I'm not a hardware expert, but I can tell you it's extremely bright now. The government has come up with the PL1 scheme, and that scheme is applicable to the hardware industry. And large number of hardware companies have been selected. You will see a massive change in the hardware industry over the next 5 years. Massive. Yeah, still the one part of the hardware industry, which is the semiconductor chip manufacturing, that may still take longer because the monies required are so large. So government is still thinking through. Maybe today Prime Minister may have announced something, I don't know. But they're very serious about it. And I do expect government to announce some scheme for chip manufacturing also to happen in India because it's absolutely required.
May I add to this answer? Because the hardware story, everybody believes that India has slipped for quite so many years. In fact, I remember Kohli sir, even at the age of 96, used to routinely call me on phone every 2 or 3 months and shout in his booming voice, saying, Phatak, you are not doing sufficient work for the Indian hardware story. Yes. The fact of life is that Indian hardware story was continuously being written, but it was being written primarily for clientele elsewhere in the world. So as Harish said, the number of very, very smart people engaged in developing either embedded software or IoT software or hardware, solving hardware design issues are very large in number. But so far, they were primarily working for the global clients. I don't think that nature will shift overnight. But there is a development in addition to what Harish Bhai mentioned. I don't know whether you have heard of EPIC Foundation.
Yes.
Ajay Chaudhary and Arjun Malhotra, my friends, have set up this foundation, which is actually a Section 8 company, but which brings together all the hardware designers, including the chip designers or what we call system on chip designers, to rewrite this story altogether. And that massive effort has complete support from the Ministry of IT, complete support from the government. I can assure you that in next 10 years, you will see a completely revamped India in terms of the hardware industry. I am convinced about that.
Yeah, with so many design excellence centers coming up or already running in India, we will be also having the best practices with us.
Yes.
Harish Bhai, Mohan, I want to ask one question to Harish Bhai.
Okay, sir.
And Dr. Ramani is also there. He can take his advantage. Harish Bhai, this is my personal question for CSI. Some of us, all of us are at very great pain today. See the status of the society. Can you guide us, 2 or 3 principles, on which the future society, our member or actual committee should at least, I see the Narayan Murthy has given the slogan, value-based company. What 2, 3, key things, I'm very glad to listen what Dr. Phatak and you have said about the NASSCOM and CSI collaboration. And, I think we all aspire this thing, but, it should happen only when, when there is a quality management, quality secretariat, because NASSCOM will not like to put the hand in the messy water unless they want to, make this as a part of that organization. I don't know. It's a very difficult thing. But what are 2 or 3 principles, you say that the future executive committees or senior members should now adhere to? And we will request DB Phatak maybe whenever he get time to also guide on this as a vision paper or whatever. I think he is very busy. So that is what my question.
Say, MD, I'll give one area which I can add here is that the quality of members of CSI must be what you define as a vision to deliver. So if you're a member somebody becoming a member by paying subscription fee, that's not member to me. So once you define your vision, okay, what is it which CSI wants you to, and accordingly, you want to bring such people on board to become members of CSI. For example, for NASSCOM, we wanted one thing very clear, okay, we must have a single voice. Now, Mr. Kohli didn't want to join NASSCOM in the beginning. We said we will not start till he says yes. So we delayed forming NASSCOM by 6 months till he said yes. So that was the fundamental principle, very clear. Okay, we want single voice, and single voice meaning 80% of the top line you must represent. Now, TCS and Ministry had almost 60% market share in those days. They are not part of NASSCOM. Who are we? Just another city-based organization. It will not grow anywhere. So, like that, you will have decide some of those clear principles by the visionaries of CSI, and there are so many, and say, okay, these are the ground rules we will not compromise on, and then take it forward.
Hello.
5 minutes. Sorry.
Thank you, Harish. Thank you.
Future CSA member. Future CSA member.
Mohan, I would suggest we have completed our time limit.
Yes.
So if you could kindly closure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yes, go.
I just
Good
would like
evening.
to give a final comment, and before we close, when I came back to India, I had met Mr. Sharu Rangnikar, who was the management guru in those days, and he remained management guru till he passed away as such. He had told me that I'm going back to 1977, and he said, "Welcome to India. You are coming to a country where you will be a first-class citizen in a second-class country with a third-class administration. And your job is to contribute to fix it." I can see now what has the change, the way the changes have taken place. There is a good potential for India to become, for all of us, a first-class citizen, first-class country with a first-class administration. So wish you all the best to every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
It's a privilege to thank the speakers, Professor D.B. Phatak sir and Mr. Harish Mehta for their valuable time with us in this evening. Thanks, sir. Thanks,
you.
Phatak sir and Mr. Harish Mehta sir. It's
All right.
really a great evening for us with a lot of senior members. We are very happy to be the part of this evening. Our sincere in this for Mr. H.R. Mohan sir for his continuous support in organizing such a best knowledge sharing event. Thank you, sir. Thanks for all our fellow members and senior members joined with us from Chennai and different parts of the country today. Thank you so much for joining with us today, sir. Thanks for our joint societies, IEEE and ACM, and also our sincere thanks to all the participants for your active participation. And we request you all to participate in all our upcoming events too. Thank you so much. Thanks again.
I have a suggestion. If all those who are present can put their videos on, and maybe we can take a snapshot with both
Sure,
Harish and Deepak, and even Dr. Ramani, who's been quiet all along. If Dr.
Yeah.
Ramani could also put his video
Okay.
Yeah. PVS, can you organize from the PC? Because I am on a mobile, so I can't do that. So if someone who are on the PC,
I have already shared some of the photographs.
oh, very good. Kundu is the official CSA photographer.
I can only see 9 people on my screen. Anyway, somebody who
Okay.
can get
Thank you.
all the
Yeah.
30. Yeah. Okay.
Harish, thank you very much. Deepak, thank you very much. MD, hello.
Yeah.
I'm switching off now. Mohan, thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, and congratulations, Harish sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mohan, for organizing such a beautiful.
Oh, Mani, nice to see you from Coimbatore.
Yeah. Nice of you.
Yeah.
Great to see all CSI veterans.
Good to see Coimbatore being
Yeah.
represented. Yeah. Dr. Venkatesan, good evening.
Sir, good evening. Very nice event. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Only question I had was, do they recommend courses for the colleges? Any recommended? Maybe I did not ask.
Oh, I could have, yeah. But anyhow, that was a continuous debate is happening now with the technology is changing. So
Yes.
there is no set course. Micro graduation and micro courses are required order of the day.
Yes.
Dr. Ramani.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Ramani, sir, good evening.
Mohan, bye.
Okay, thank you, Mani. Thank you,
Yeah.
Mani. So, MD, everything went up well?
He's muted. Sir, you are muted. Please unmute.
MD, you are on mute.
I'm saying thank you very much, and Ramani is also has joined, in the beginning,
Yes,
Ramani.
Correct. Yeah.
It is very nice to see you on the video after a long time. So I'm very happy to see you, Ramani. Kundu sir is there. Kundu
Yeah,
sir, you are
between-
having 2 videos now. 2.
I have already-
Already